Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pitch Side Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive the updates from these episodes and all of the content on the channel. Of course, follow us on social media, I'm at PSP on Twitter, PitchSidePod on Instagram, and you can listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Welcome to episode 85 of the show, and always join us for more. Thank you. We'll kick off with some Monday night football reflection. Of course, two games were played yesterday in the big leagues. It was the Premier League and La Liga. Real Sociedad, of course, drawn against Real Madrid, won all the way from home to the La Liga champions. Real Madrid, I think, missed an important opportunity to close the gap down on Atletico Madrid at the top of the table. They stand now 5 points behind Atletico Madrid, and that is before the derby, and also with the game in hand for Atletico Madrid. Real Sociedad were the side who took the lead, of course, 55 minutes with Porto, and a late equaliser from Vinicius Jr., a lucky goal, and as I described it in the review, gave them the equaliser and gave them the all-important point. 5 points behind Atletico Madrid they go before the derby, of course, on the weekend. Probably the biggest game of the season, I think. In La Liga is going to be a defining game in which direction La Liga title is going to be going. Is it going to be a Atletico Madrid title? Is it going to be Diego Simeone's year, or will it be a triple header competition between Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid? That is going to be interesting to know in the next couple of weeks. In England, of course, in the Premier League, Everton defeated Southampton 1-0 on Monday. Everton managed to score very early from a goal from Richarlison. It was 1-0 since the 9th minute. They defended really well for the rest of the game. Southampton tried a lot of opportunities. The second half in particular, they were really pressing Everton, but they couldn't equalise. Southampton are really continuing on that downward spiral, really. They've been going into for the last couple of months now, since the turn of the year, since the start of the new year. They only managed 3 wins in all of their competitions. Of course, the other wins being against Wolves in the Cup and being against Arsenal in the Cup as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Everton now are going to be carrying on their season. Of course, 43 points now with the game in hand. This could mean that with a win in that game in hand, of course, against Tottenham, they could go up to the top 4 of the Premier League table, which is going to be interesting because, as I mentioned yesterday, the top 4 race is really wide open in the Premier League at the moment. Let's turn our attention now to the midweek action pack, starting from the Premier League, carrying on with the same momentum. Really, the Premier League, of course, in this midweek has a lot to offer. Of course, has 7 games to offer us. Different rounds, of course, 6 games from the round 29, because, of course, of the Cup competitions and the Cup commitments from those sides involved, and round 23, of course, round 33 for Fulham and Tottenham, with the commitment of the Spurs into the Carabao Cup final, which is going to be played late in April. We have Man City Wolves today, Burnley Leicester on Wednesday, Sheffield United Aston Villa, Crystal Palace Man United, West Brom Everton, Fulham Tottenham, and Liverpool Chelsea. And make no mistake about it, the game that is going to be drawing the most attention in this midweek is, of course, Liverpool versus Chelsea, for a lot of reasons. One, of course, it's another face-to-face between Klopp and Tuchel. It's, of course, it's going to be a big one for for Liverpool, really, if they want to keep their top 4 chances alive. The victory against Sheffield United away from home was really, really important for them. And yes, as I mentioned, and I'm mentioning again, it's Sheffield United, so I think Liverpool shouldn't get too much credit from it. But to be fair, the win is still a win, and with the amount of injuries they have, with the amount of problems they have this season, it doesn't really need a lot of saying to just mention how important that victory is, morally and psychologically at least, for that club. For Chelsea, of course, they've been on a good spiral of results, keeping clean sheets and all. In the last couple of matches, really, they've been on a good roll since the arrival of Tuchel. Still only conceding one goal in the league in their 8 games under Tuchel. The draw against Man United probably pointed out a couple of problems: the lack of efficiency, a bit of a sluggishness from Thomas Tuchel in terms of tactical management of the game, playing with 3 strikers in one game, changing between 3 strikers in one game, that is, starting with Giroud, then putting Ziyech for a couple of minutes as a striker, then putting Werner, of course, taking Ziyech out, and trying to, couldn't find the net. Chelsea couldn't find the net because United defended in the second half and sat deep in the second half and played the usual game under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Of course, that game in itself was sort of marred by an extra conversation or an outside conversation about refereeing and about the referee Stuart Atwell. The claim from Harry Maguire that Stuart Atwell said that we're not going to give a penalty. It's a long story that no need to get into at the moment, really, because it creates a lot of controversy. Compare the form of Chelsea to the form of Liverpool in the last couple of months, and of course the difference is staggering. For Liverpool, it seems like it's win or lose pretty much since the turn of the year. They only drawn once in the last 11 matches overall. Of course, 1 draw, 5 wins and 6 losses. That is, in last 12 matches, that is. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do at home, because the common point between the losses, aside from the loss against United in the FA Cup, the common point between the losses is that those 5 losses or 6 losses, 4 of them are at Anfield, and 4 of them are back-to-back at Anfield. They've only won away from home to Tottenham, to West Ham, to Leipzig in the Champions League, and to Sheffield United. So their home form is really bad at the moment, and you expect them to struggle against a Chelsea side, because Chelsea defended really well, improved a lot, I think, under Thomas Tuchel in terms of how they control the midfield, the way they set themselves up, the way they are, positioning themselves on the pitch, because under Frank Lampard, they usually, place themselves pretty high, but I think they pull a medium block when they defend now. Thomas Tuchel, they're more of a conservative side, more of a rational side when they defend, but they also going forward. They still have maybe a couple of problems they need to fix to be a little bit effective, a little bit more clinical. The finishing needs to be, I think, polished. Not because the players that finished are bad, but I think the work before it doesn't allow a lot of room for clinical finishing. For Chelsea, they struggle to find a little bit of a space when they don't have the opportunity to. When you don't give them space, of course, they struggle. But I think I can guarantee that against Liverpool, they will find a lot of space. They will find, the amount of space, just the amount of space that they need, I think, in order for them to find, the likes of Ben Chilwell, Hudson-Odoi, Hakim Ziyech moving in, and with the amount of injuries that Liverpool still have, I think, at the moment, it's going to be interesting to see how things are going to be going. Of course, no Gomez or Henderson, Van Dijk or Matip. Those are going to be long-term injuries. Fabinho and Diogo Jota are still probably unavailable, so it probably will be Kabak and Nathaniel Phillips starting at the back once more for Chelsea. And if you put someone like Giroud between them, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they deal with that. The fact is, maybe Liverpool will draw positives as well from the fact that the last truly great game that they played this season was against Chelsea, away from home in the Stamford Bridge 2-0. I think that was the best game for Thiago. A game where they dominated. Yes, it was a red card since the first half for Chelsea, and I think it was, of course, for Christensen, the red card since the 45th minute of that game. But, the facts are facts. Liverpool still played their best game there. But obviously, the circumstances are different now. New coach for Chelsea, new style, new lineup. I think this might change the things around. And obviously, Liverpool's form as well. And Liverpool's season hasn't been kind to them. And the fact that these two sides, as much of a difference between them, as it were, early on the season, find themselves almost joint on points, 1 point between each other, and neck and neck in the top 4 race is really interesting to see. And the obvious conclusion is that Liverpool's level have dropped a lot this season. Liverpool around this time had 73 points last season. I mean, around this time, meaning round 25 and 26. But, this season they have only 43. That's a huge drop from where they were last season. Even Man City, with all the improvements, 20 victories in a row with 62 points, they're not too much, they're not too much ahead of what they were last season, because they were third at the table and 59 points. Last season they had, at this point of the season. So it's not going to be like Liverpool. It's not City improved a lot. It's Liverpool lost ground. That's, I think, clear for anybody to see. Of course, the rest of the fixtures of the Premier League in this midweek, as I mentioned, Man City Wolves is going to be interesting to see whether the Wolves would be able to try and halt Man City's momentum. West Ham didn't, almost did, but Wolves, I don't think so. I reckon Man City would probably win this one. Burnley, Leicester City. Leicester should bounce back after the Arsenal game, but against a side like Burnley, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really an aggressive game, and they still have a long list of injuries with Bryant, Perez, James Justin and James Maddison, Fofana and Harvey Barnes, of course, as well as Wes Morgan missing for injuries, and Johnny Evans potentially could sit out that game. Sheffield United face Aston Villa. This should be an easy one for the Villains, who look also to get into that top 4 conversation. They also have a couple of games in hand as well, so it will be interesting to see how they deal with those. A victory would take them up to 8th, 42 points and above Tottenham, and it would be interesting to see how the top 4 race is going to be shaping. It's going to be quite the affair with Everton and Tottenham and Aston Villa having games in hand to play, so we'll see out how those games will end. Of course, they have games between them to play, so it will be really interesting to see how the top 4 race is going to be shaping after those games in hand. Man United go away to Crystal Palace in a tricky affair, really, in the Selhurst Park, in order to try and save face. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer probably should concede the Premier League title, probably should accept the fact that they lost it, but, realistically speaking, maybe it won't happen. It's going to be a tricky one against Roy Hodgson and Crystal Palace. West Brom host Everton, and again, this should be an easy one. I think for Everton, they improved a lot lately. Low-key, one of the best defences as of late, I think, in the Premier League. In the last couple of weeks, they've been keeping clean sheets. They've been doing a lot of work. They lost against Man City, which is expected. Unexpected loss against Fulham, but whatever in between, they had a really decent form as of late. Everton, and of course, they want to get in that top 4. Something looked almost impossible to get in the early goings of the season after their form dropped massively. Fulham, Tottenham, of course, on Wednesday as well. It will be interesting, or on Thursday as well. It will be interesting to see how Fulham would deal with this London derby. From the Premier League, we move to the Serie A. Round 25 is going to be taking place during this midweek on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Kicking off with Lazio Torino on Tuesday, Juventus facing Spezia on Tuesday as well. Sassuolo Napoli, AC Milan Udinese, Genoa Sampdoria, Cagliari, Bologna, Fiorentina versus AS Roma. Atalanta Crotone, Benevento Verona, those are on Wednesday, and it will be Parma versus Inter on Thursday. So it's the Serie A hit quite the turning point, really, with a derby. Della Madonnina with Inter defeating Milan 3-0 in that derby. Of course, it was a turning point both for AC Milan, both for Inter as well. The last couple of weeks haven't been good for Inter. Of course, they had a victory against Roma on Sunday, which was really interesting to see. They needed that victory. As I mentioned in the review of that game, sorely they will be missing, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the next game. Of course, potentially he's going to be missing out this game against Udinese. With muscle injury, they already have the likes of Ben Nasser. Çalhanoğlu has confirmed that he's going to be sitting out that game. Rebic as well is going to be sitting out that game, and Mandzukic. So it will be quite the list of injuries, an important list of injuries as well, like important players of the squad. Ben Nasser already is a crucial player in the midfield for Milan. Çalhanoğlu as well, Rebic, no Rebic in the attack, so it's going to be quite the quite the work for Stefano Pioli in the game against Udinese, a game where they defeated, of course, the Udine, aside from Udine 2-1. It was a hard game in the first leg, with all those players being present, really, for AC Milan. I think Benasser was absent in the first game between those two sides at Udine, but it's interesting really to see how things will plan out for AC Milan. No, actually, Benasser was there. He was a part of that game against Udinese. Again, it was a hard game in Udine, 2-1 barely in the late moments. A goal thanks to Zlatan Ibrahimovic saving the 3 points for them. So imagine how this is going to be hard for AC Milan against a side in Udinese that, might not be the best side in they're not the best side in this area, obviously, and they're languishing in the mid-table, but they have quite a decent form about them. They could still hit you when they want to. They have quite the good results as of late, really. A draw against Udinese, a draw against Atalanta, the draw against Inter as well. They also, they can force results out of big clubs when they want to. They have some decent results in them, so AC Milan, I think, should be wary of that, and especially that they play before Inter Milan on Thursday, and that could be really, really important for Inter Milan. They would wait for them to slip up again, and Inter Milan, should they win against Parma, they would take a big, big advantage. The potential advantage could be of 7 points if they defeat Parma on Thursday. And that could, I think, settle everything in terms of the league. Rolling back the clock is going to be, of course, going to be Juventus versus Spezia on Tuesday, and the problems are with Juventus this season. I think they should concede the title. Juventus should concede the Serie A title. They should accept the fact that they're not going to be winning that trophy this season. It doesn't really it doesn't really make a lot of difference if they're going to be changing the formations or not. If they're going to be playing 3-5-2 or 4-4-2, the inefficiency is the same. And when they start really slow and they start really methodically and they don't move a lot, and there is some players, particularly in the middle of the park, that I think they don't do the necessary work. Hello, Bentancur. They really don't have the opportunity, and they don't have the chances, I think, to win the Serie A, let alone the Champions League title, because with a lineup like that, even Cristiano Ronaldo, for all the great things that he could do on the pitch, if he doesn't score a goal, he doesn't give you much on the pitch now. It really changed to a certain situation now. And I'm not saying that he's getting tired or anything, but I'm saying that the system and the organization around him and the players around him, the lineup, the squad, the cast, the supporting cast around him is not giving him a lot of room to work with. It's not giving him a lot of chance, not providing him with the balls that he needs in the box or outside of the box. Certainly a lot of movement is needed in that Juventus side, and I think with the kind of setup that Pirlo wants, it doesn't look like they will get it. Certainly with Rabiot and Bentancur, two players who, at best, I would say they're really above average. I cannot rate Rabiot high, even with his. He's decent. He can be a good distributor of the ball. He can play the right pass. Of course, he can make a good run. But I favour McKennie over him, and of course the news is Juventus bought McKennie on a permanent deal, which is, I think, the good coup for Andrea Pirlo and for Juventus. And if Andrea Pirlo is going to be continuing to coach Juventus up to the next season and beyond, I think he should use McKennie even more. Obviously, I think Andrea Agnelli is is going to be patient on Andrea Pirlo for the next season maybe, and if he's going to be doing so, McKennie needs to start more often. Arthur, when he returns from injury, needs to start more often. I think that's your midfield right there. You don't need a lot of work around it. It's Arthur, it's going to be McKennie, you maybe take Chiesa, and you see how you can figure yourself out on the left, Benedeschi. You see the options right there. Maybe you change the system altogether if you're not going to be playing a 4-4-2. I don't know. I really doubt that Rabiot and Bentancur are going to be regular features in next season if they continue with the current performances, and that is going to be important if Juventus want to go back and win the title. And I'm not saying this season, because I accept the fact and I believe strongly that Juve are not going to be winning this, and I sort of expected it since last season. Since I saw the dip in form last season, I said they're not winning the title next season, and certainly happening. Inter are leading the table. AC Milan are the closest ones to them, and Juventus also could lose even potentially with a dip in form again. They could lose their Champions League spot, like they could lose their third spot even to Atalanta or to AS Roma, to Napoli or to Lazio. The potential is big there in Serie A. Of course, they still have a game in hand in Napoli, which almost all the Juve fans are hanging their hopes on that game to get them back in the Serie A title race. Speaking of that, of course, Parma host Inter on Thursday, and I think this is a game, looking at the current form of Inter at the moment, looking at how the things are going for them for Antonio Conte, it almost looked like a given conclusion that is going to be Inter winning, with the form of Lukaku has been in at the moment, the form that Martinez is in at the moment, the whole, I think, morale of the club is really boosting, the fact that Conte found a proper starting 11, the proper starting 11 of personnel, the fact that he doesn't start Vidal anymore, like he's starting Eriksen over Vidal, which I think is a smart choice, given himself a lot of hard work. Obviously, I mean, the fact that the squad is fully fit helps a lot, the fact that they don't have injuries helps a lot. I mean, the only injury they have is Sensi, and that's of course a long term. It has been the case for a while this season. Stefano Sensi hasn't found his ground in Inter. Probably would be shifted away in the summer because of his history of injuries. A fully fit squad, but obviously any injury to any player in the ilk of probably Lukaku or Barella, in particular Hakimi maybe, is going to be really throw a lot of shade in the squad. But at the moment, Inter are leading the table and obviously favourites to win the Serie A title. From Italy to Spain, and the Copa del Rey semi-final is taking place this midweek. Of course, the second leg of that round. This semi-final is going to be taking place, and Barcelona are going to be hosting Sevilla in the Camp Nou, hoping for a remontada and turning things around from a 2-0 down in the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. With, of course, they won with the same result against Sevilla in the weekend in the league. Hopefully for a remontada that would see them to the final of that competition. And as much as this remontada is possible, obviously the one in the Champions League is not. But the fact is, the victory against Sevilla in the league should boost their momentum, and rightfully so, because they had a terrific performance, I would say. The fact that they changed the lineup was really good, changed the sort of shape they play in. Koeman was ready to accept the fact that he should change the shape, playing 3 at the back, was, I think, a little bit more secure for that defence in particular. No lot of spaces to cover for someone like Piqué, who cannot move a lot, and being a central of the defence alongside Mingueza, Longley, obviously more mobile, more active than him. Probably with the return of Araujo, that is going to be even, with the return of Araujo down the line, that is going to be even better for Barcelona, really, because Araujo is even better in terms of moving and, you know, covering space, and that is going to give Piqué all, I think, the cover in the world, or the security in the world, to just do the things that he do, be good in the air and get the ball out of the box. You know, that change in the shape, I think Koeman maybe will carry on with that formation. I'm 100% sure that he's going to be carrying on with that 4-2-1 kind of thing, or 3-4-1-2 kind of thing, where Dest and Alba, of course, are full-backs, are wing-backs. Busquets and De Jong start in that midfield, Pedri's in front of them, and you have Messi and Dembele as strikers. I think that could work, really, and it worked for Barcelona against Sevilla. Dembele was making so much running forward. Of course, he was moving into the right spaces at the right times, as far as Barcelona are concerned, and Koeman would be proud of that, would be happy of that. Certainly, they would need something like that to happen. Of course, Pedri isn't available, unfortunately, for that game, so that might be a big blow. But obviously, you'll probably have, I don't know, I mean, Braithwaite might be starting, which I don't think is the good idea, really. To drop someone like, maybe drop someone like Griezmann behind them and play with Messi and Braithwaite, I don't know. Again, it's going to be interesting, but I'm going to probably bet good money that Barcelona are going to be starting with that 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-1-2 kind of formation. Definitely helps at the moment, and against a side like Sevilla, who play with what looks like a 4-2-1-3, but it's a really sort of almost flat 4-3-3. I mentioned it a lot, Papu Gomez, you cannot play him and Rakitic in the same squad. Rakitic doesn't work anymore. You play Papu Gomez in that number 10 role, and you just give him the free roaming role, give him the opportunity, give him the freedom to move behind the attackers and start Youssef En-Nesyri, because the fact that you didn't start him in the league game, As you mentioned in the review of that game, as you mentioned in the podcast episode afterwards, obviously Sevilla didn't care really about the game in the league. They wanted the game in the cup, they wanted a trophy, and maybe that will make us see another face and another side of that Sevilla outfit, which we didn't see. I mean, they're really strong defense at the moment. They're one of the strongest in Europe, one of the strongest in La Liga as they stand. And against Barcelona, it's going to be, I think, if they defend well and they bounce back really well, they don't give too much space, they don't make the same mistake they make in the league game, I don't think that Barcelona are going to have a chance to make a comeback. And obviously it's all about the first 20 minutes of the game, the first 20-25 minutes of the game. If Sevilla can get it right, if Sevilla can defend right and keep Barcelona at bay, this is going to be really interesting to watch. If they can't, and if Barcelona manage to find space early on, and Messi manages to find space, and Dembele manages to find space, it's going to be a different story. It's all about scoring an early goal in those kind of situations where you want a comeback. But just a caveat, just between a bit of a brackets, that if Barcelona make a comeback here, that doesn't mean that they'll make a comeback against PSG, because the situations are really, 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 really different with that game in the Champions League anyway. The second game, of course, in that semi-final is Athletic Bilbao versus Levante, and that is, I think, a game that is wide open at the moment. 1-1, it ended with San Mamés. This could be, of course, a great opportunity for Levante to reach a final. If they manage to keep a goalless draw, they would go through to the final. We'll see, and of course, would that happen? That game is on Thursday. That's it from me for this episode. Thank you for watching / listening. I was your boy, the HD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates, and of course, follow us on social media, site PSP Android at PitchSidepod on Instagram, and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.